You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
This entire episode is a sponsored presentation from NOSOTROS Education Center. They've partnered with us to share resources, information, and upcoming workshops and provide insight to any new programs, experienced programs, veterans that are out there seeking ways to enhance their program's performance. While the content is sponsored, we believe it offers valuable information for our audience. Again, thank you for tuning in, downloading, and streaming from your favorite podcast platform. Before we begin, some announcements. Heads up, Trio community. The Council for Opportunity in Education's 2025 Policy Seminar is coming up on Sunday, March 16th through Wednesday, March 19th at Washington, D.C. Go to COE's website to look at registration details. The link is provided on the podcast description episode. With constant changes happening at the presidential level and impacting TRIO programs, now is the time to advocate for TRIO. Make sure to reserve your spot today. The 2025 TRIO Student Access and Success Conference hosted by North Carolina Central University is happening Thursday, April 10th through Saturday, April 12th. The TRIO Student Access and Success Conference is a 3-day student development conference designed to provide TRIO and accessibility scholars with the opportunity to experience community engagement, academic and personal development, networking, and overall enrichment. Visit the conference website for more information and to register. The link is on the podcast description. Again, a great episode featuring Lisa Retamozo from the NOSOTROS Education Center. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode.
Hi, TRIO Nation. Are you a new TRIO program? Do you need some guidance on questions you have regarding your program's objectives? What is this APR thing that many TRIO programs are talking about? You're in luck. Today, we have a returning guest on the podcast representing NOSOTROS Education Center, a sponsor of this podcast that has provided valuable knowledge to the TRIO community since 2003. I want to welcome back a guest and returning guest of the Let's Talk TRIO podcast, CEO and owner of NEC, Lisa Retamozo. Lisa, welcome back.
Well, thank you so much for having me again. I enjoyed my time the last time we met. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. People I hadn't heard from for years popped up and found us somehow.
Really?
Yeah, so it was really, really great. So always have a great experience meeting with y'all. I love Let's Talk Trio podcast. I think it's a great resource, and especially now, a way for us to kind of get together and talk about things. And I love how you spotlight students and personnel as well. So it's an honor to be here with you again.
It's an honor on this end because we love having your voice here and your expertise. So you're here to talk about a lot of things TRIO. But before we get started, again, good to have you back. But how have you been with all the things that are happening and things that you're also personally dealing with, because you're kind of sick, but you're still doing this. So we appreciate you. How are you doing? How have you been?
Well, besides getting the flu and pneumonia right after I did the Priority 6 training in Puerto Rico for the family-centered agency that's for new directors training. So I was so excited about going out to Puerto Rico. Apparently I caught something on the plane going over there a couple of weeks ago when everybody was coming down with the flu and pneumonia.
Oh my goodness.
Got it. It was tough, but I've recovered. It's been a couple of weeks, but I'm a little older now, so I don't bounce back as often, as quickly as before. But other than that, doing great. It's been a very, very busy season since, we got over the holidays. We are every month, we're continuing to expand the number of services that we can provide to TRIO programs in the form of, professional development offerings, technical support for TRIO programs. And I'm really excited to be here to share with you our latest a list of resources, workshops, and also some new things we're launching, like our own YouTube channel. And also that will always showcase our free webinars, and also some grant writing workshops that are coming up for Talent Search and EOC.
Wow, that's wonderful. So again, you're here to talk about those upcoming workshops and give us a small taste of what attendees can expect. Can you give us a taste of what are those workshops? What are they aiming for, or what do they do for these TRIO programs?
Absolutely. Love to talk about the services that we offer. We have developed a series of workshops specific to each TRIO program. In addition to that, where we call professional development seminars, which are allowable cost, and those are for EOC, Talent Search, Upward Bound. We have a new one coming out for veterans, Upward Bound. So those mimic the priority trainings or the new directors trainings. And some, I know the new director and priority trainings through the Department of Ed are free of charge to attend, but nothing's for free because you still have to pay to travel, and that's
Right.
time. They do offer some online options, which are great. So we always encourage everybody go to those if you can afford it. But if they're scheduled during a time that's not convenient, or you can't get everybody together, or you don't
Mhm.
have any travel money, or you don't want to travel,
Mhm.
look at what happened to me when I traveled. I got sick. You can always download them on demand and utilize them for onboard training, for example, with new or every year it's really good to discuss or to rehash the regulations, best practices, things like that. So we feel it's a really important resource, not only for continuous onboarding, but continuous professional development for existing staff. So that's our professional development workshops. They can be live, scheduled on your schedule and your timing with your staff, or they can be downloaded and recorded. People have access to it for over a year until we update them. And then we have, and that's an allowable cost, but we're about to next week. It's our third talent search grant writing workshop.
Oh, wow.
In March, we will have our second EOC grant writing workshop, but we also offer assistance with the annual performance report. So we
Mhm.
help folks with our free APR webinar for each of the TRIO programs. But then if people needed additional assistance, like if they were a brand new director or they were a director that wasn't new, but was new to the project, or
Mhm.
ended up having no staff to help or very little staff to help, we would meet with them individually and assist them to complete the APR. We do offer program evaluations, compliance assessments. Our biggest thing right now, not only is compliance assessment, virtual compliance assessments, but developing a virtual policies procedures manual. That has been really a hot ticket item. Um,
Mhm.
all those things, we're trying to provide targeted and specific professional development and also relevant information and assistance to make sure TRIO programs are in compliance, but also well organized with their policies procedures manual.
Absolutely. And that well-organized part really comes into play because at the presidential level, we're seeing kind of breakneck speed of changes through executive orders and various changes through the Department of Education. So it's important for TRIO programs to understand how are they staying in compliance, right?
Right. Well, it's interesting you bring that up because that's one of the latest things we were just approached to provide projects with is to do a review of their existing proposal.
Oh.
We're used to doing reviews of proposals to get people funded, but now we've been
Mhm.
contacted to assist in the review of over 50 federal proposals across the country. Some are TRIO, some are non-TRIO, where we go through and make sure they're in compliance or not conflicting with all the new, there's about 7 major executive orders that came out that may impact some of these programs that are already funded. So they've
Mhm.
hired NEC to go through and basically look for those keywords, programming, or budget items that may be flagged as being in conflict with executive orders. And they've asked us to go ahead and reword it or to let the client know about it and also help with developing additional activities or services or recommendations on how they can step away from that so they wouldn't be in compliance, out of compliance with executive orders.
That is really proactive of your organization to really look at how to stay in compliance and not uh,
Wait for someone.
yeah, and not wait for someone. Precisely. You exactly hit the nail on the head. So Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about the workshops or professional development opportunities that are coming up? What do those look like?
Sure. So next week we have our talent search grant writing and proposal development workshop, and that's where we're going to do a deep dive into strategies for developing competitive talent search and EOC grant proposals. Both are 2-day workshops. They are live. We cover a total of 10 sessions. Each one is an hour and a half. We offer a lot of resources along with that. And because it's grant writing, it unfortunately it's not an allowable cost, but it is a very good investment to use your indirect funds or institutional or agency funds. And I think it's really, really helpful for those folks that maybe, they don't have a grant writer, so they're going to have to be writing it themselves. So
Mm.
it's a very small investment, I think, a really good investment, and the payoff, to get y'all refunded. Because we teach it, we provide instruction based on our experience writing hundreds of these proposals, and we want to share, it's not really a secret. There is a method to the madness, but we want to try to make sure as many people as possible get that opportunity to go through all those steps, because we love to get people funded, but even better, we like to keep them funded. All the sessions are recorded. So if you have to step out, because I know it's hard to dedicate 2 whole days, or sometimes, you're not supposed to actually be attending on work time, so you have to take 2 days off, or you could purchase the workshops and then listen to the recordings on the weekend or after hours when they say we're supposed to be working on proposals. So everything's recorded. And the other thing I think is really unique with what we do is that once you pay to attend your first talent search or EOC grant writing workshop of the season,
Mhm.
um, that admission fee allows you to come back to attend all subsequent sessions. Because our philosophy is, or people would tell me, and having been a director, I would understand. Well, I can't go now because it's too early and the RFP is not out yet. What if something changes and I can't afford to come later? So my institution or agency has says they're only going to pay for me to go once. So I've got to wait. I've got to wait. And
Mhm.
so I was like, no, you don't have to wait. You pay once. There's an individual fee for one person, and there's an institutional or agency fee for as many people from the agency or institution that want to attend. And they can come to as many subsequent sessions as we're having, because we will update each one as we get closer. And then definitely when the actual RFP comes out or the program application comes out, then it's on. But we have wanted people to already start working on it, being
Mhm.
proactive, like you said, so that when the RFP comes out, then we're fine tuning. But I would hate for someone to wait because would have to, they could only pay for it once. And I don't think there's too many other companies, grant writing companies, that offer that service. We also, with the admission of the first one, the recordings, of course, a link to the Google resource folders that have all the PowerPoints and supplemental resources. But we also have a grant writing forum, like a listserv, an internal listserv, so that people who attend the workshop can continue to communicate with one another and also share ideas or share answers. And that is another feature where they can communicate. And if anything, vent or put it out there, like, is anyone else freaking out about this question, or what about this? And I think that mindset, or that knowing that you're not in it alone, psychologically really does help with writing, when there's someone out there, or they can give you another idea. So that's the biggest part of that. Not so much
Mhm.
that people can log on and ask us questions. I don't mind that. I love that. But I
Right.
want them to communicate and kind of bond over this process, because I think that does help everybody overall become better writers and answer the question more appropriately. Um,
Absolutely.
we also have I mentioned earlier, we have our professional development seminars, which are an allowable cost. They would be considered professional development or in-service training.
Mhm.
They're listed in all the regulations under allowable costs. So we do it for all the programs, but we've never really done it for 2 days, or as intense as we're going to do it coming up in April 3rd and 4th for Veterans Upward Bound.
Oh.
We're going to have 8 90-minute sessions that include not only an overview of TRIO, but deep going into the Veterans Upward Bound regulations, which Veterans Upward Bound, to me, out of all the TRIO programs, is the most complicated
Mm.
regulations and definitions. And also, when you work on the APR,
Mm-hmm.
I used to think, okay, it's something that you do at the end of the year to prove, to document progress.
Right.
But looking at it right now, I notice that there's so many things that if we discuss it even in the middle of the year or the beginning of each project year for the new year, it could really help people get off on the right foot every year to clarify things. Because we notice when we're helping people do the APR at the end of the year or in the middle of the next year for the year that already ended,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the errors or discussion are things that should have been done earlier, but people did not understand the regulation
Oh.
until they were asked the question in the APR and they finally click and they said, "Oh, that's why we should have had a better definition as to when we consider a veteran completing our program."
Mm-hmm.
And that anyone out there with Veterans Upward Bound will understand what we're talking about. But I didn't necessarily, because my experience as a director was not with Veterans Upward Bound. It was with regular Upward Bound.
Mm-hmm.
And, people say, oh, it's the same, it's under the same regulations. And I'm like, no, it's like we're in the same solar system, but on
Mm-hmm.
two different planets. The
Mm-hmm.
Upward Bound planet is different from Veterans Upward Bound. And I felt, and so also Mary Meeks, who is our taking the lead on Veterans Upward Bound. She has been a director and also doing national trainings. And if you're in Veterans Upward Bound, you know the name Mary Meeks. She recently retired and she started her own company. So we're partnering with her. I was never, like I said earlier, a Veterans Upward Bound director. So I want to make sure that someone is taking the lead who has lived it and experienced it. And she has, and she's going to be, I'm just so excited because now we're going to go through best practices in identification, recruitment, and selection, which is so unique for working with veteran students. The delivery of service is also very unique because everyone is an individual. They're adults. You can't treat them like students. You can't have them coming together all the time. It's not going to happen.
Right.
There's also specific documentation and record keeping that's specific to Veterans Upward Bound, compliance assessment issues, budget management, specifically to their programming and how they dedicate or set aside monies to serve each student, and also looking at not only the unallowable or allowable costs for Veterans Upward Bound, but also checking out in the uniform guidance, there's going to be a lot more information there regarding costs that people typically don't get a chance to dive into because they're so fixated on their program regulations, which is great, but that's just 10% of what you can and cannot do. 90% of what you can or cannot do is in the uniform guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to expose, or we try to let everybody know about that look, you're not getting all of the information just from your regulations with your program.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know everything about your regulations and something about uniform guidance to help you make an overall good decision when it comes to programming and managing your budget. So we're so excited about this because we're finally going to be able to, with Mary's expertise, provide relevant, applicable best practices and answers for Veterans Upward Bound personnel. And these are a group of TRIO folks that sometimes get forgotten at most conferences and trainings. They kind of have to do their own thing. So we're really excited to do that. So anybody's interested out there with Veterans Upward Bound, please go to our website. In a second here, I'm just going to list that, but you can always go to NOSOTROS Education Center, Google it, and go to the NEC shop, and it's listed there. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, we have the on-demand and live training sessions for our individual TRIO programs. What I just described that we are focusing on in April for Veterans Upward Bound, we do for Upward Bound Regular, Talent Search, SSS, EOC, and also McNair. We have recordings ready to go on demand, and also, like I said, depending on if you want to do a staff training in a certain time of the year, you want to do maybe a couple of half days of training or 2 full days, whatever. If our calendars can click, we can make it happen. And also, we provide a listing of workshops that you can choose from. And also we can customize. Some people specifically say, look, we're having issues with this, or we need this. Can you help develop that or find someone to present on that? And yes, we do. What's also unique, I think, with our company is that there's many companies out there that help personnel present directly to the participants, either with curriculum or workshops, that they would be trained and present to their participants in their TRIO programs.
Right.
We focus on training or providing professional development to the TRIO personnel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we, of course, can bring in other folks to, if somebody wants we want to develop or we want to come up with a financial literacy workshop for our EOC participants. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we can help them do that, but we always connect them with vendors and the experts that actually would help develop. So we don't develop curriculum or workshops to provide to participants, but we sure as heck develop workshops, services to help the TRIO personnel directly.
So it's really focused on the growth of the TRIO professional.
Yes.
And again, some of these workshops sound really great, and they sound like they would help a program get ready for applying or renewing a grant. Is that right?
Yes, they are. I mean, a well-prepared grant proposal is definitely essential for secure funding. To secure funding, and the TRIO grants are really not that difficult unless they totally revamp them, but they have not been difficult to develop and write.
Mm-hmm.
The big deal is that people don't have the time because as directors and full-time TRIO personnel, they've got programs to direct, they've got students to identify, recruit, select, and serve. They've got
Mm-hmm.
APRs, they've got personnel issues. So, we're not, we're no longer our directors. Most of us are previous directors or with other positions with TRIO. So we now have the time to really get obsessed with the best way to get people funded or the best way to answer the question or the best format. So I think that's another thing our workshops do is we help people who don't have the time to dedicate to looking at best practices or formatting
Mm-hmm.
or discussions about proposals, or even to think about the process. We take them through the process just like, this is what we do. We're going to take
Mm-hmm.
you through it and also making sure that with your existing budget that it matches with what your delivery of services is going to be, and that when someone on the outside looks at it, it makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
we like to focus on that, and we also like to help people develop a very relevant, realistic plan of operation and evaluation plan that doesn't overwhelm them so that when they do get funded, like I gave them points to get funded, but then when they actually tried to do it, they ran away from it because it was so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that, so we pride ourselves on writing evaluation plans and a plan of operation, delivery of service plans that are realistic and will help overall improve the delivery of services and how they evaluate themselves during the year instead of once a year or at the end of every 5 years, um, on top of getting them full points. So
Absolutely.
because I used to look at my evaluation plan before I wrote it, and it
Mm-hmm.
got its full points. But honestly, I couldn't get past the first paragraph because it was so over my head and so like
Mm-hmm.
this is a program within a program. So I
Right.
do it.
Wow. Absolutely. Can you give us an example or a sample of what you would cover in a grant writing workshop? Because I'm going to be kind of a layperson here. Isn't it enough for me just to write a grant, ask for the money, and then like, hey, I got a TRIO program funded? Isn't that enough?
It used to be back in the day, and definitely for people who are getting funding from foundations. It used to be, but even now, foundation writing, they're like, no, that's not going to cut it anymore. But it
Wow.
used to be. So, you were on the right track. Back in the, before in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, it was all about tell me a story,
Mm,
give me a budget, tell me a story, give us some quotes, no hard data. And if they liked the story, they would give you the money.
hmm
And even Trio used to be a little bit like that when I first started.
uh-huh.
But now it definitely is more than just asking for money. You've got to demonstrate your program's impact. aligning with the federal priorities, providing measurable outcomes. In our workshops, we cover understanding the competitive grant writing process. We basically take you through, we have a session called an overview of the last competition and getting into the right mindset. And, we kind of, not to kind of scare people into, being serious about it or getting on, starting to work on it, but really letting people know, hey, once every 5 years, it's on right now. We got to start working on this. And you got to understand where we lost points last year or last time around, where you could lose points moving forward. And let's just get into the right frame of mind, but knowing that we're here to help you out. And also we cover making sure that there's a strong need section. And we make sure to let people know, look, this is the spreadsheets that we're using of all the data that we're going to collect. So here it is. This is the data you need to be collecting and how you can compare it to another entity like the state or the nation to prove that you can show need. Got to show need. We talk about how much is enough need, how much is not enough need, and also, bring up common issues or problems that we face when we're helping clients with certain showing need in certain areas and what we've done in the past to show the need. And also, about the objectives and performance measures. A lot of folks write set their objectives too high because they're trying to match their performance report rates. And we have to remind them, well, your performance report is based on providing services to a specific group of students you've selected. These folks, these students, you've seen them over a course of years. So of course your rates need to be higher than if we asked you to set objectives on people or students you've never worked with before, the whole school, rather than, just some of the students at the school. And so sometimes we have to kind of remind them that, when you when you ask for existing or continuation funding, you're really asking for new funding, and you have to provide a whole new needs assessment. So you're not even supposed to be looking at your performance report. It's not what you've done with the group that you're working with. It's what you will do with a brand new group of people who you haven't started working with. And then the budget. That's our biggest headache right now, is that a lot of people are living year to year off a carryover. And now when it comes time to develop the first year of their next funding cycle, since we're not going to have carryover, a lot of them are discovering that, oh my gosh, I don't think I have enough money to cover everything.
Oh,
That's why we have to, do it now. In fact, that's our second session of our grant writing workshop. Even though in the budget, it's down toward the bottom, I think it's the next to last section. In our grant writing workshop, after we talk about the overview of the competition and getting you in the right mindset, the second session is on the budget. Let's see how much let's have a discussion about how much you could possibly ask for. And these are the things you better show that you can afford. And if you can't afford it out of your federal funding, then you need to have a plan to ask the college or the agency to chip in, or come up with some other restructuring so that you can have enough money in your budget so the reader will see that you can afford this program. And then we talk about another thing that's unique is because we've written so many proposals, we have been able to collect, how shall I say, reader scores from the proposals that we didn't get a perfect score. They still got funded. Everybody got refunded. But because, people have prior experience points, they can afford to lose a point here or there. I hate it when we lose a point. I love getting perfect scores. But we are learning from those proposals where we lose a handful of points. They still got funded. The client's happy. But we're like, I need to see those reader scores, because what we want to do is learn, and we're learning what the readers were told to look for, and specifically what they were told to take points off of. So this time around, in every single session or section, like when we talk about the needs section, we end every section with a couple of slides where we talk about, hey, just letting you know, in 2021, in this needs section, we have examples of what people put and what the readers took out for scores or did a reduction. Same thing with the budget, or same thing with the plan of operation. Hey, guess what? In the plan of operation, we talked about it. Now let's end it, letting you know what happened in 2021. Kind of like, we don't want to go there. Learn from our mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes. So it kind of gives you a clue, um, uh, or kind of a guide as to what the tone or what the readers were told to look for. And you don't find that in the RFP or in the program application.
Mhm.
It comes from, word on the street, or really looking at these reader scores. Again, because we do so many, we see it systematically happening. It's not just one reader here. It was a bunch of them at different times. So that tells us that that was probably a directive that they were given anytime they were reading, because it's so common in so many proposals. So, it's those small details. I think that, people sometimes they overlook things. So to the untrained grant writer, missing out on data points, or not giving a detailed description could cost them funding. Literally, I've made $1 million mistakes,
Mm.
but I've learned from them. So I always tell people in our grant writing workshops, look, I'm not any smarter than you are. I've just made more mistakes, and I've had more time to write more things to make mistakes. Thank God I'm more right than I'm wrong, but I'm still wrong. And I want to tell you where I was wrong so you can learn from my mistakes.
But with your organization, you really take a fine comb through, and you're really learning from every grant application on how to spot things that could cost funding or could cost points in a review process. So that is amazing.
Yeah, you know what? We learn. I mean, it sounds cliche, but we actually, like you said, we are learning from each proposal, because each client comes from people say, well, all the town search grants are the same.
Yeah,
They're the same objectives, the same regulations. And I said, yeah, but
right.
people are coming from different places. We have rural, we have urban, we have a college, we have an agency. Some are at a target school, so that's great. Some aren't able to go to the target school. Some have 20 schools, some have 5 schools. I mean, no two are alike, so we're always learning. And what we learn with a rural client here on how they were able to show need and how they did that, we can
Mhm.
carry over it to help another client. The same thing with an urban client, that where they're not showing need because they were using the whole city of Fort Worth, for example. And I said, that's not going to work. You don't serve the whole city of Fort Worth. Well, no,
Mhm.
I don't. We serve the north side. I said that that's your target area. So that we got to dig in deeper into the census data to show how that neighborhood within the city of Fort Worth is showing need. Because sometimes your target area initially doesn't show need anymore because it's too broad,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So we learn, but we do learn from every single proposal, and we try to carry it over to other folks.
Absolutely. But it also speaks to your ability to fine tune and really hone in on the things that could potentially either be problems or things that you want to really boost up and really highlight for a program. I've also seen some posts where you offer programs an opportunity to prepare for the annual performance reports, or also known the APR. Lisa,
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you, as a former director from a long, long time ago, these reports are very intimidating. So, what do you and your team do to make sure that Trio folks feel confident about tackling the APR?
So we love doing this service. And when we say, what, it usually HAP starts in November, December, January, February, lingers on as long as the reports are there. But again, what we do, not only to help people either start from the very beginning, like we have people that I haven't done a darn thing. I just got here 2 weeks ago as a new director. What do? We dive into it. We go step by step, and we, don't do it all in one meeting. So we may do it in 3 or 4 different meetings, and we kind of give a little bit of a homework, like a plan. I think it's like a plan to attack the APR.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about your situation. Everybody's different. Just like I said, oh my gosh, so many different scenarios. So we have to quickly kind of come up with a game plan, a
Mhm.
strategy to attack the APR. Are you working on it by yourself? Is anyone else helping you? What database are you using? What records do you have so far? Do you have anything? What have you done so far? We kind of spend the first meeting doing an overall assessment. By the end of the first meeting, we come up with a plan, steps that we're going to do each time we meet, and then we follow up, or they text us, they email us, and then we meet again to see what's going on. And we will take them from the very beginning to the submission. But also throughout every meeting, we will point out things that, in a nice way, I think we do. I call it the shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Where I said, you
Mhm.
know what? We're struggling to answer this question now for last year, and we're in the middle of the next year. So let me remind you, field 18 needs to be answered, for example, at the beginning of every year when somebody's new, not now,
Yes.
I'm going to help you now, but that's what we kind of teach them or let them know. The APR doesn't have to be overwhelming. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be the big monster or ruin your whole holiday season. If you strategically, at the beginning of every new year, start attacking it and
Mhm.
realize out of all the fields, which fields need to be updated immediately on the first day of the new year, project year, or as new participants are coming on, which ones for continuing participants need to be updated. And it's different for every program. And then in some of the programs, entering services and how they directly start adding up to the APR, like in SSS, and also to establish services in most of the databases. So when something occurs, like an EOC or town search, when a student, we find out that they're going to college, we can track that. So at the end of the year, it's not like, okay, what happened to our 110 seniors? Oh, no, we were tracking it during the year. So
Mhm.
when we talk to people about doing their APR, yes, we will do everything to get the 23-24 APR, but almost every other sentence we're telling them, now for 24-25, as soon as you get this in, you see what you need to do in 24-25, so you will never find yourself in this situation again. Okay.
Yes,
Because
that's important.
every APR, almost every APR, projects can have done by the end of August, okay?
Mhm.
Pending some verification of where kids went to college that they usually have to wait until November after the census data colleges. But everything else on everybody's APR, they should have access to and have entered in their databases by the end of August. But that
Right.
doesn't happen. I think
Mm.
like a tradition, people um, wait until the APR is announced to start working.
Yeah. And that's,
Where,
yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
no, I want people to realize that August should be the month to close out the year. And when I mean close it out, answer and do as much as the APR as you can do before you start the new year.
Absolutely. The APR has certain requirements, right? So for brand new directors that may not feel familiar with it, each TRIO program has to meet certain goals they've set out by the grant. Can you give us an example of what those goals are, and are these goals standard across all grants?
What's standard across all the grants is that every grant or every TRIO program has to have, and every federal program that's considered a training grant has to have performance measures. Um, because when we think about it, we may have 1,100 or 1,200 SSS projects, but they're all under the one umbrella of an SSS program. So there's only one SSS program, the National SSS program, that's made up of about 1,200 projects. Well, the National SSS program has to have performance measures. And some of
Mhm.
the performance measures are the objectives that the 1,200 the 1,200 projects are, having to answer on their APR, plus additional performance measures that the national program is being held accountable to.
Right.
So everybody's APR, if you were to look at it, and every time we've had an APR webinar, we like to point out to the people attending, you may have 34 fields here, or like an SSS, or in Upward Bound 66 fields. But I tell you, like for SSS, there's only about 6 fields that tie into the objectives to give the feds, or to give the Department of Ed information on your objectives. Well, what's all the other fields? Well, those are performance measures that they have to collect
Mhm.
for other things that the national program wants.
Mhm.
So that's where it differs. But again, the consistency is that every single program has to have objectives that fall under the overall performance measures, and then additional items that they will ask all the TRIO projects And sometimes we have a discussion about why do they ask that? It's not an objective. I said it's not an objective, but the national program needs to know because the idea is that they collect all the information from all 1,200 SSS programs and they're able to provide one overall report that shows the effectiveness of each program. So, for example, SSS programs must show increased persistence, good standing, college graduation. And if it's at a 2-year, they have to show increased transfer rates after graduation. So that's very specific to them, which of course is different from the other programs, but all the programs have to have performance measures. What we are so, TRIO is so good about having performance measures that include project objectives plus overall measures for each program that that I'm actually feeling pretty good about TRIO surviving in the current climate because it's one of the few programs that historically for generations has had a long history of performance measures. And they can show effectiveness, which some other programs may not be able to.
Right. You also host workshops targeted specifically to individual TRIO programs because, like I asked in the previous question, and you explained it so wonderfully, that each TRIO program has different needs. What are the purposes of these workshops when you target specific, like for Talent Search or for EOC or for SSS? What are the purposes of these workshops, and why have specific audience for them? So why target specific TRIO programs?
I love that question because sometimes people say, well, can't you do Talent Search and EOC at the same time? Or can't you like put Upward Bound and Veterans Upward Bound together?
Yeah.
Or even Talent Search or UB? And I'm like, no, because they're so complex, each one. I mean, has its own specific set of how you should identify, recruit, and select that it could confuse an Upward Bound person might get the wrong message that I'm telling a Talent Search person and vice versa. So just like, when I was a talent search director and I'd go in to do workshops at the high schools, the high school always wanted me to meet with all my students, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders at the same time. And I was
Oh,
like, no, everyone's at a different place. And the workshop that I want to do for the 12th graders is going to really bore the 9th graders. And what I do for the 9th graders, the 12th graders, you know what? I don't think it's fair because it's not relevant and it's not a direct
right.
connection. So the same thing I feel about the TRIO programs. I'm a big believer in that they need to be kept separate. Sometimes you go to trainings, they put pre-college. Here, everybody pre-college, go to this workshop and you go do the same thing. Everyone that's, a college-based program like McNair and SSS go here. And I still think they're still so different that I realize for, logistics, they may have to do that. But that's another reason why I love doing virtual because we can have that flexibility to do that. Meaning that, each TRIO program serves a distinct student population with unique eligibility requirements and needs. I mean, for all our professional development workshops, we usually start our first session with covering what we call the TRIO umbrella regulations, meaning let's talk about the things in TRIO that are the same for all the programs. Okay. And that's in one session, just like an overview, because there's some things like the definition of low income, the documentation of low income. Those are the same across the program.
Right.
Okay. And we talk about how everybody has performance measures. Everybody is supposed to have objectives. We talk about the definition of independent student versus dependent student. That's the same across all the boards. So that takes up one session. But then the rest of the sessions, like for Upward Bound, are very specific about just Upward Bound regulations. Because, of course, y'all probably know that Upward Bound focuses on high school students, while EOC works with adults trying to go to college. And people say,
Yeah.
well, they're both pre-college. Oh my gosh, like I said, we're in the same solar system, but two different planets. And it would not be helpful, I don't think, or might be more confusing to put, them together and say, well, let's talk about it together. No, they're very different. That's why our tailored workshops ensure staff receive relevant training applicable to their specific program model and objectives. That's why we love to get Upward Bound people together so we can talk it out. And we want to have EOC people together so we can talk about and share examples and give affect best practices, advice, recommendations for them that would not probably work very well with an upward bound audience.
I love how you really highlighted the differences because in the world of Trio, we tend to use the same lingo, right? The same lingo that applies to APR. Everybody knows what APR is. But then you go into the more specific populations, like you were pointing out, like Upward Bound, Talent Search, and they have their own specific lingo when they refer to things in their programs and their requirements. So again, beautifully stated. I do think some folks look at Trio programs, and like you already said, they assume that they are all the same. Like you said, some will go to that pre-college program thinking, oh, this is going to benefit my upward bound program, but then the material doesn't really match up to what their pre-college program really is trying to emphasize. Yeah, could you speak on that a little bit about this kind of trying to put everybody together and trying to uniform Trio when really it serves different populations?
Well, that's a very common misconception. And especially now, I'm glad that there's folks talking about Trio, during confirmation hearings. But they always just talk about upward bound, and they don't
Yeah.
realize that we're more than upward bound. And I know when I used to travel a lot, and you sit next to people on the plane and you start talking and you go, what do you do? What do you do? And I said, well, I work for, there's Department of Ed programs, the TRIO programs. And they're like, what? They've been around since 1960, still nothing. And then
Oh
I
yeah,
always
yeah.
say, well, like Upward Bound. Oh yeah, Upward Bound. Yeah. And you will always find, which I guess is good, but they have no idea. There's also Talent Search. There's
Hmm.
also EOC. There's
Hmm.
also Veterans Upward Bound. There's
Right.
SSS. There's McNair. So all of these years, I'm glad that people know about Upward Bound, but I wish they also knew about these other programs. And I think that's our job as TRIO folks to try to put that out there, however we can, to talk about all the TRIO programs and to let them know we're more than just Upward Bound. Don't get me wrong, Upward Bound. I know y'all are
We love Upward Bound, yeah.
the OGs and everything, but we're more than that.
Hmm.
And again, I go to my analogy that we are all planets, part of the same solar system, but we are very, very different.
Absolutely. So it's so true that each program serves the needs of different student populations, but they all carry that college readiness theme. What
Correct.
can programs learn from NEC to enhance a student's college readiness or resilience?
I'm glad you asked that. Programs should, and we recommend and we help them, we review in our compliance assessment and also our program evaluation, more so in our program evaluation, we do have a category of time that we spend um, having a discussion with the director and the staff about their academic support services. What
Hmm.
what is it? Oh, well, we do tutoring. Well, how? I mean, is it online, in person? Are your tutors trained? If so, what training material, what training do they receive? If it's online, what platform are you utilizing and why did you select that? Um, or they say, we're doing mentoring. Okay, well, again, is that professional mentoring or is your staff mentoring them or are you involving some other groups? Career exploration, we have a discussion about it,
Hmm.
back and forth. We want to not like an audit. I don't want it to sound like
Right.
interrogating them, but we're making them think about it, and at the same time, we're writing it up for them so that
Hmm.
when it comes time to develop their policies procedures manual or in the compliance assessment where they get asked by the department or somebody else, what's your academic curriculum and what's your supportive services curriculum? They're not like, what do you mean? They can say, oh, we have it written out here. And here's
Hmm.
links to the resources we utilize, our career exploration, so they're prepared to do that. And I think sometimes it makes them question sometimes a certain platform or a certain curriculum or vendor they've been using. And they sometimes say, well, I don't know if it's any good, but it's what we've always used. And that's when we
Hmm.
say, well, you know what, you may want to think about utilizing this instead or switching it, that kind of thing. And again, I go back to seeing how, we may not be the ones, we are not equipped to develop your academic support program or to come up with an award-winning mentoring program. I mean,
Hmm.
we can connect you or find vendors that we feel confident, make their bread and butter. That's their jam, to
Right.
career exploration. We don't want to mimic that. That's their expertise. And some programs say, well, we do our own thing. And I say, now, do you really, again, I'm being friendly, but are,
Absolutely right.
are you pulling things together? That takes some time and effort. And there's only two of y'all running trying to work with 500 students. It
Right.
might be more cost efficient or effective to outsource that, curriculum with pre and post tests, user guides, things like that. So we try to provide TRIO personnel with effective management strategies, basically, and best practices in the way they deliver college coaching, financial literacy information, STEM engagement, things like that to their participants. And we cover things from how many staff people you have, are they full-time, part-time, to what curriculum you're utilizing and why. Are you happy with it? Or what about this platform? Have you thought about using constant contact with EOC students or
Hmm.
developing a platform so you can communicate with SSS and SSS or Veterans Upward Bound? That kind of thing, so that they can be effective in connecting with the participants and maybe come up with or feel good about the curriculum and the vendors they're utilizing already.
Absolutely. And to go back to a word that you use the word interrogator as saying that's not what you're doing. I would like to offer a substitution word that you're more of an investigator about how the programs are really investing their time and effort and seeing if they're really producing the results. So I like that you used like we're not interrogators. We're asking the questions that programs should be asking.
Right. And I love that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna say we're investigators. We really are trying to and not so much to I always say when we do our compliance assessment, I come in peace. I'm
Right, right.
friendly, I'm mimicking what the department would look for. Okay. But at the same
Precisely.
time, I'm also telling you, okay, you know what, that's probably not gonna work. They wouldn't tell you that. So
Hmm.
or so let's work on an example. Or what about this template? Let's get you in compliance. So that when someone less friendly who does come in to interrogate, you know, um,
Right.
they're covered. So
Absolutely.
I go, look, I'm your friend. What happens here stays here, but I got to let you know this is great, and I got to let you know this is not so great. But
Hmm.
I'm not going to leave you high and dry with you got to fix it. No, it's going to be like these are the things we can do to fix it, and let's work on that before we move on to something else. But yeah, I like the word investigate instead of interrogate.
I love that. So this segues beautifully to the next question because a lot of programs are kind of in that area of like, well, when do I do evaluation? When is it a right time? So in what ways can TRIO programs continue evaluating themselves to ensure
Mhm.
that they are meeting their program goals?
Well, you know what? I used to hate my evaluation plan because I was a new director, a young director, a new director, just trying to barely survive with identification, recruitment, selection. So I avoided it like the plague, especially like
Hmm.
I mentioned earlier, when I would try to look at it, I'd shut it right away because it was too hard. It was too
Mm.
confusing. And I
Hmm.
thought, gosh, let me keep busy doing everything else. And hopefully no one will ever ask me what I've done regarding my evaluation plan. Well, fast forward. And I got to be honest, it wasn't until I was no longer a full-time director so that I could devote my time to, force my time to make friends with evaluation plans where
Hmm.
we realized that, you know what, an evaluation plan should not and does not have to be hard, especially in trio or overly complicated. And one of the things that we were forced to do, which I hated at first, another thing that I hated, but now I love, are logic models. And, they're no longer new, but they were new, like, 15 years ago. And it's our friends in Gear Up that were forced to do it. So I used to be involved with Gear Up in writing those proposals, and it was mandatory that we had to develop a logic model. So because of that mandate, I forced myself to dive into logic models. And then I'm a slow learner, realized, hey, and I would put it in there. I said, "Ah, this is crazy." But then we got the idea of, you know what? Our in Trio, in our evaluation plans, every time we write a proposal, they never mention logic models, but I'm getting how it would really make our evaluation plans make more sense. So we started putting and utilizing logic models in Trio way before all of a sudden it became pretty much a mandatory thing. But
Hmm.
I urge folks to, if you're not already familiar or okay with logic models, to become okay. with your logic model. Everybody in the country now is working under a proposal in the evaluation plan or in the competitive preference priorities attachments that came with your proposal. We all have a logic model somewhere. So I urge folks, like you asked me, what should people do? The first thing is to dust off that logic model and update it and make it work for you after you've, in fact, I think we have one of our workshops on a logic model and we also can direct people to other supportive videos about the logic model. It doesn't have to be very complicated, but it makes sense. It gives you a logic model. What I love about it, because I'm visual, and it gives you on one view, basically, your whole program and the inputs, the interventions. First, it starts with a problem we have, like, too many low income first generation students are not going to college or staying in college. And we've got the inputs listed, the intervention. Then we have the short-term outcomes, which are like our internal goals, which is another thing I strongly recommend that projects have internal goals, not objectives. We have to have the objectives, but setting specific internal goals that they can measure at least once a semester to see where they're at. I compare it to, if you're obviously, I don't run marathons at all. I heard and I've seen where people will check in at certain miles, right? Like
Yeah.
it's 26 miles or whatever. Okay. They know where to pace themselves, or they kind of check halfway or a quarter through where their time is so they can kind of see where I'm doing. I mean, they're tracking their progress. I
Right.
see internal goals that way, where internal goals need to be set every year, so that during certain times of the year, you can see where you're going with that and you can track your progress and make changes on the fly, because we can do that. Another reason I love TRIO programs is that you just need your immediate supervisor's permission when you have to make a change and when you do something or how you do something. As long as you still meet your objective at the end of every year, as long as you're still providing the required services and some of the permissible services, as long as you're not asking for any more money or in utilizing your funds in the appropriate way, you don't have to always get permission to make modifications that you need to be making. But the issue is a lot of people don't realize, or they have a gut feeling, but they don't have it in numbers. Or like if you're tracking your internal goals and you're coming up short, that gives you in black and white quantitative data to jump in and make some changes that you kind of had a gut feeling you had to make, but it would go ahead and do that. It would give you the tools to justify, why you have to make certain changes. So again, that logic model will contain, the short-term outcomes. Then the midterm outcomes are your objectives. And then long-term, ultimately, those are actually the purpose of the program. So it ties it all really nicely in. And I think it's something that you should have on your website or when you do presentations to the community and let people know about TRIO, that you have that logic model, not just for show, but that you're actually, utilizing to help track yourself during the year, which is what they call formative evaluation. A lot of people will tell me, well, we do our APR every year. And I go, I know that's summative once a year, but what are you doing during the year?
Yeah.
You need to have some sort of monthly evaluation going on, or at least every semester, depending on the program. It all depends. I can't tell Upward Bound, you got to do it every semester, and SSS, whatever, and an EOC, is a different deal. But that's why specific to each TRIO program, they have a specific logic model with specific internal goals. And in all our professional development workshops, during our evaluation section, we go through a specific and provide a specific logic model for each program with specific recommended internal goals that are unique to EOC versus, Upward Bound, and give them ideas on how they can track student progress, analyze key performance indicators, those kind of things, so that it also in a manner that it doesn't become a project within a project. Because the last thing I want to do is to cause more headache. We're trying to actually alleviate stress and give you more information. And of course, NEC, we also do separate. One of the other services we do is external project evaluations. We do them virtually. We used to do them in person, but now we like to spread it out throughout, 2 or 3 months where we could meet constantly to talk about certain components, have interviews virtually, things like that. And one of the things that comes from that is we kind of revamp or redo their evaluation section and develop a logic model for them with goals that are specific to them. And then we help them measure as they go through and see if we need to tweak them, the internal goals, so that they can actually utilize them. So they're not just for show. I hate that. I hate when stuff is just to get it done. If I'm going to do it or have someone have to do it, we want to make sure they're using it. And if they don't find it helpful, then we need to redo it for them.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask this next question. I think it's a little bit more of a controversial slash it's kind of like on a worst case scenario. In what cases do TRIO programs need a restructure? In those cases, are the programs not performing or have they strayed from the program models or goals?
Usually, in certain cases and usually people contact us when they already know, what, I think we're off track. And they tell us. And so, like with us, it's full disclosure, you could do an evaluation, but if you already know that, things are way off, and some people do know, then, let's take it a different way and not go through a whole evaluation yet to see that. Let's do a compliance assessment, which is, it's always important to be in compliance than it is to be high rated as quality service providers. I mean, in a perfect world, you want both. You want to be in compliance and you want to be high customer service with great performance on your objectives. You want both of those things. But sometimes we get, in a situation where people already know we are way out of compliance. I already know. So what do we do here? And that's when we do compliance assessment right away. And then we go ahead and start, hopefully get them back on track, provide all these professional development services, workshops, database training. We have a bundled package. We call it virtual technical assistance. With some programs that are needing to be restructured, we sell our hours in 20, 30, 40, 80, sometimes 100 hours. And we spend those 100 hours working with the director and other staff to do everything and anything to get them back on track. Some people contact us and they say, well, we just want a compliance assessment. We don't think anything's going on, but we want to be sure, proactive. So that's a standalone service, compliance assessment. Some people contact us to do customized database training. We do that. Some people want the project evaluation. We do that. But some people come to us and say, look, we're either brand new or there's issues here. We need to restructure. And so that's when we do the whole, like everything and anything to get you back on track. It's called professional development. And it could be from the APR all the way to policies, procedures, and all that good stuff, just to make sure that they're in compliance and have better alignment with the TRIO regulations and also their institutional policies. So we will help with program redesign, staffing, realignment, and strategic planning. Most of the time, people or either the PI that's in charge of the programs has a feeling that there's an issue, or sometimes it's a director, or sometimes it's somebody who's a new director that's been there a couple of weeks or months and realized, wow, what have I stepped into? I need some help to get that. So most people know. It's been rare where we have someone that is surprised, after we do a compliance assessment or a project evaluation where we have to say, look, we're going to have to start from scratch, and it does happen, but NEC again is unique to take them through from the very beginning to making them, both in compliance and high quality service providers.
Fantastic. It's vital that TRIO program staff feel supported. And I feel like NEC does a great job to provide this kind of comprehensive service for personnel, TRIO personnel and staff to really understand their programs. What sort of technical support does NEC provide if TRIO staff have any questions?
Well, great. I'm glad you asked that. So we also in NEC love to offer free webinars. If you go to our website or sign up to our website to become a free member. Membership is free. And what do you get with your membership? Well, we will post and send invitations to all our free workshops that are all recorded. So you don't even have to attend in person. We tell people, hey, you can't make it, just sign up. We'll send you the recording.
Mhm.
And it comes with the recording link and also to the Google Drive that has the PowerPoint and any resources we talked about. So we at NEC, I mean, we want to be a place where people come to get information. Even if they can't, for whatever reason, pay a single penny for any of the services, we do have a tab there that has all our free webinars. In a second here, I'll show you the YouTube channel that we post all our free webinars there so that people can use. Um, in addition to that, we answer questions. You can go to our website and people ask us questions. And most of the time it's about the regulations. I love answering those questions because they keep me on my toes. And I go ahead and go and copy and paste the regulations and say, here you go, keep this handy. And we also have a lot of resource toolkits. We also like to repost free information or about free webinars from other vendors like Innovative Educators. They have a lot of great free things and other resources. So we're trying to just put it out there. Also, when we find out anything or find a good article or any kind of free training that would fall under something a TRIO staff or project might want to look at, we do a lot of reposting. So whether it's compliance questions or best practices, we either try to connect people with other vendors, like we'll get questions about, well, do you know about online tutoring? Who would you utilize? Or
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
about for workshops, at the SSS level? Well, we get those so much that we've created our NEC preferred vendors list. And we have that as a free resource if anybody, who needs to spend carryover money. I mean, we always say, hey, don't forget about us, with your carryover funds. But there's only a certain amount of money or stuff that we can do. Believe me, we'd love to take all your money, right? But we can't,
Right.
you got to spread the wealth there, share the love. So we do have a spreadsheet of vendors that we either have used ourselves or have established relationships with, so that we know their stuff is good, and that if we were directors, we'd go ahead and recommend them and utilize that as well. So again, we have a lot of free stuff on the website and also videos, and we take questions. And, in fact, that leads to some of our long-term clients started as people that would ask me a question one week, 2 weeks later, another question. And,
Mhm.
and no strings attached. I'll get to you as soon as I can. And
Right.
then, they go, well, you know what? I've 3 months later, I have some carryover and I've been going to your website and can y'all do this and this and this? And I'm like, we sure can. So we love doing it. We love helping people with answering their questions, even if they can't pay ahead of time or whatever. We want to be a resource guide because you know what? It's good karma because eventually most of them come around and end up actually purchasing something. But even if they don't, we're happy. We feel it's putting good karma out there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, okay, I know that Trio staff are eager to hear what opportunities are coming up. Will you provide a link to each of the workshops on the pod? Well, again, we will provide a link to all the stuff that's happening on the podcast description. But Lisa, what is coming up?
Well, what's coming up? Let me, I'm gonna have to probably I have it up here if that's okay, if I can
Yeah,
share,
that's absolutely go for it.
because we have so much coming up and I'm such medicine head right now. I feel better sharing the resource here page. So let me go ahead and share this real quick. Okay, so let me go to our shop. So if you go to, can you see my screen?
It's coming up. It's about to load. There it is. We got it.
Okay, so it says NEC shop, right? So our
Yep.
website here is under NOSOTROS. You can see nosotros.org and go to our shop. And what we have here, what I mentioned earlier, just a second ago, or a little while ago, our upcoming webinars. We have our talent search proposal writing workshop scheduled for next week, the 27th and the 28th. Then we also are going to repeat it on April 24th and 25th. Again, Once you attend one of our workshops, you are able to attend all subsequent ones free of charge. 2-day webinar. When you click here to register, you get all the information like the agenda, so you'll know when we're going to take breaks. Maybe your return, you're coming for as a return attendee and you want to, just attend a certain session, you'll know what time that's going to happen. And it reminds everybody that it's recorded. So you'll always get the on-demand recording plus a link to the Google Drive that has all the resources. Then in March, we'll have EOC, Proposal Writing Workshop as well, 2 days, kind of the same thing. Here's the Veterans Upward Bound Professional Development that we're really excited about on April 3rd and 4th. And our free webinars are going on. So every Wednesday,
That's awesome.
we're having Veterans Upward Bound APR Q&A because that APR is tough. I mean, there's a lot of individual. It's like, when someone does their financial aid, you do it for one person and the instructions look easy. But when you actually work with the person and have their individual situation, you have more questions and looking through the whole thing to see how to make it work. Veterans Upward Bound is that way. Almost every single participant has a unique, it's almost like they're all on their own individual educational plan as an individual. So almost every single veteran, we have to go through all the fields to answer the APR. So anyway, so much so that, in addition to the free webinar we had, Mary Meeks, again, the expert with Veterans Upward Bound, we get together every Wednesday and you can log on and ask your question. If no one has a specific question, Mary will pick out a number of fields where there's been an issue before, and we talk about it, if anything, to let people know, okay, maybe you know the answer now for this year, but what are you doing for 24-25 to make sure you have that answer ready for the 24-25 APR? Then we're real excited about starting in March. We're going to have our Talent Search and EOC Proposal Writing Q&A, our free Lunch and Learn webinar. Anybody, you don't have to have attended any of our workshops, but anybody and everybody, please register. They're going to be every Monday from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time until the proposal's turned in, where we're opening it up and just answering questions. We call it Lunch and Learn because we figure that at least during our lunchtime, we can talk about the grant, right, on our personal time.
Right.
And so this is a way to do that. Every session will be recorded too if you can't make it, or if we're presenting at a time that's not your lunchtime, so you can watch it later. And then we talked about this already, the APR technical assistance we still are offering, general, for McNair now and Talent Search, EOC, and specifically Veterans Upward Bound. So if you need additional help, don't hesitate to check it out. There's links in there. It tells you how to go about doing that. And then, of course, we've got our recordings of our already workshops, proposal writing workshops that we did already, that if somebody doesn't want to wait until next week or, wants to get started on their EOC, I can't wait till March. We'll sign up and you can come to the free one and we'll go ahead and give you the recordings too now. But we'll be, recording, updated ones. So, like being proactive, right? So when it tells you here, your purchase of the recording includes access to follow-up proposal writing workshops. So we try to do everything to make it more realizing and understanding how budgets work at the college, and that colleges will say, I'm just going to pay for you to go once. And so we want you to be able to say, well, if I pay once, I can keep coming. And then we have our professional development on demand web recordings. These are ready to go. Each one of these for, Talent Search. We have the on demand recordings here. And we also have for Upward Bound, we have the institutional rate for anybody at the college or agency versus the individual rate. Your best value is to purchase the institutional, but we understand. And then we've got all our products here, our virtual compliance assessment, our development of policies, procedures, our on-demand recordings of certain professional development trainings, and so on. And then I wanted to also, you can just check it out here. You could buy live workshops, 1, 2 days, all that. That's all listed here in addition to the recordings of all our demand professional development trainings that we did in August, and we're going to update them all in August as well. And then I'm also going to just show you our YouTube channel for all our free stuff.
Absolutely. And we'll include this link as well on the podcast description.
Okay, great. That would be great. Let me see if I'm able to share. Do you see it in a second here?
Yes, I do.
And again, you can just go to YouTube and type in NOSOTROS Education Center. We have our own channel there. And up here, and Donna Walls is our marketing person. And also she helps write us our grants. But every time we have a free webinar, she puts it up here. Like we had a free webinar on utilizing OneNote to develop your policies and procedures manual.
Ooh.
You know, we charge for that, but hey, it's nothing proprietary or secret, you know, how we do it. This is how we do it. If you have the time to do it, go for it.
Yes.
A lot of people do. What a lot of people don't have is the time to do it. They have the expertise. They can figure it out, but we're the folks that actually get it done because we have the time to do it for you. Then we have all our APR webinars here on how to work on the APR webinar, plus the free Q&A. Plus we have videos about our services. Here's one on preparing for a TRIO compliance assessment. So again, you don't have the money to have us help you prepare. We take you through how we would do it. And if you've got the time, here you go. Creating a policies procedures manual overall, just, you know, overall development, they're all here. And so check it out. It's a lot of free stuff there. I'll stop sharing now. But we try to always, our deal is that we're trying to become a resource center, not just, we're going to go there to, you know, have, you know, to buy something. I want people to be able to go there so that they can actually, get something for free. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to try to stop sharing, or maybe you can stop it for me. Figure it out.
Let me see.
I got it.
Okay, you got it.
Again,
Awesome.
I've got so many windows open. I forget. Do you ever get lost in Zoom?
I do.
Zoom all the time.
Absolutely. And we have all these windows open. I mean, that just speaks to you're a busy professional, and you've got, like, to me, it's the equivalent of having all these tabs open on Chrome. So
I'm like, where am I? I can't find you anymore. But anyway, so that's what we're doing. And you can always check the website out. It's at nosotros.org, NOSOTROS, edu.org. So check it out.
So I know this keeps you busy. You're doing a lot of wonderful resources for TRIO personnel and the staff, and making sure that they're well informed about their programs. So I know that you're super busy.
Well, we all are super, super busy. But we love, well, you know, super busy is good, right? That means business is good. I would hate to not be busy. We're getting a lot of requests for policy procedures manuals, compliance assessments, and now the grant writing workshops. So, you know, out of all the workshops, our favorites are the professional development seminars. And also they're an allowable cost. We also love doing policies procedures manuals for folks. And then, of course, my personal favorite is the grant writing workshop, because I really love helping people learn to write proposals so that they don't always have to come back to us, because we know there's always going to be somebody new to the game or somebody that's put in that position. But we hope that, and some people have told us, you know what, I went to your workshop two cycles ago, and since then I've used those skills to get other funding, and nothing could be more of a compliment to know that people were able to get additional funding after attending our workshops, you know? So that's something that I miss as a director, not being able to help a participant student. You know, I love that, getting that feedback when they would go off to college and then graduate and come back and say, you know, you really made a difference. Not able to do that, but, you know, in Puerto Rico, someone came up to me who I'd never met. She'd been watching our free videos, and she brought me this little gift. It was so cute. And she said, I just want to let you know, I'm so appreciative of the help that you've all provided me during the grant writing workshop for SSS. I wouldn't have been able to do it without y'all. And amazing. Having those Q&As every week. She goes, it kept me going. It kept me thinking I could do this. And I tell you what, I said, you know what, you made my years, not my day or not my year, but my years, because it'd been a while. And this is someone who, you know, I had no idea, you know, that we were connecting with her, you know. And so it was really, really great. And it makes it all worthwhile.
That's wonderful. Lisa, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for being on the podcast and for sharing these workshops, these opportunities for TRIO programs. You are an appreciated resource and are an appreciated person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juan. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and connect to the TRIO community. And we look forward, y'all, to come to the website, become a free member, and attend our stuff for free. And when you have a few pennies laying around, go ahead and throw them our way if you want to get some of the professional development. Thanks.
Wonderful. Again, we will provide all the links to the Nosotros Education Center resources down on the podcast description. That ends the episode.
Thanks, Juan. Appreciate it.
Thank
Take
you.
care, y'all.
That concludes our sponsored presentation from Nosotros Education Center. We hope you found the information shared today about workshops, resources, and how to connect with NEC valuable. We want to thank our sponsor, Nosotros Education Center, for their support in bringing this episode to you. If you're interested in learning more about Nosotros Education Center, you can visit their website. Their website is listed on the podcast description. And as always, thank you for listening to Let's Talk Trio, and we will catch you on the next episode.